Morning. Hey guys, welcome. I've talked about how difficult game dev can be on many occasions, but now I want to flip it on its head and talk about why making games is easier than it's ever been. Making games is always going to be hard, but I think there's definitely a reason why the amount of games being published on Steam looks like this. Whoa! I don't want to spark an engine war. I know that you guys are loyal to your game engine of choice, but I will say this. All three of the main ones that you have likely heard of, Unity, Unreal, and Godot, all three of them are fantastic tools. And because these three are always competing for dominance in the market, they're always trying to find ways to one-up each other. Competition is a great thing for the end user. The more value that they can offer you, the easier they make it to create beautiful games, the more likely you are to use their engine. So they're going to keep on improving forever. Unreal has always been known for its high fidelity graphics, but then Unity developed their high definition render pipeline, and I'm not going to compare them, but you know, this looks pretty good to me. But then Unreal 5 came out with Nanite, which just looks absolutely insane. And at the same time, Unity has been hard at work on dots for a few years now, which can run a scene that looks like this, with hundreds of thousands of game objects in the scene running at 60 frames per second on a smartphone. It's still heavily in development though, and it's not recommended for commercial projects just yet. Now, ultimately, I don't really think you can go wrong with any three of the main game engines. They all have their pros and cons, they all have their unique workflows, but you can get a small game up and running very quickly on any of them. Not only that, but they are free. Now that of course changes once you publish an actual game. Each engine has its own rules for subscription or royalties that they want to collect on your revenue. I don't know, it just blows my mind that the same game engine that was used to create Final Fantasy VII Remake, or the same game engine that was used to create Hollow Knight, are free for anyone to download and play around with. Next. Just about any kind of tool that you could ever possibly want. Any system, any kind of art package, enemy models, character models, sprite sheets, music, sound effects. All of these things can be purchased from asset stores. Now, you do want to be careful here, because if you're just getting a mishmash of all of these different assets from various places on the internet and you've got nothing unique in your game, it might get labeled as an asset flip, and that's definitely something that you don't want. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do everything yourself, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but as a developer, especially if you're a solo developer or you're just a part of a small team, you have enough to worry about with your game already. You probably have a million things to do before it even starts to feel remotely like a real game. So it might be worth asking yourself, do you really need to spend the next 6 months experimenting and learning how to create the perfect character controller? Because I think in a lot of instances, the answer is going to be no. Someone out there already did the work for you, and they made it available for you to download and use commercially for a small fee on the asset store. So, you know, is it worth spending 20 bucks in order to save yourself potentially months of work? If you want to make it yourself for the sake of learning, that's completely different. But when you're deep in the trenches of working on a commercial game, you're probably going to want to take some shortcuts to save yourself some time, because you have enough things to do already. I do find the asset stores to be a little bit like Steam. There's a lot of junk, but there are gems in there if you're willing to dig for them. If you're enjoying the video, then please give it a like. It really helps the channel to grow, and we really appreciate it. Programming was actually the reason I did not pursue game development for a long time. When I was 12, I downloaded RPG Maker 2000. At least I think it was version 2000. I'm not 100% sure. It was amazing. I was able to put together a small world. I had like a 45-second sword slash effect for the game's final secret weapon at the end. I went a little nuts with the effects. But as time went on, it started to become just a little bit less satisfying to work on, because it didn't feel like I was actually working on my own game. It's like as if I was playing Super Mario Maker and I created a level in there, and then I say, yep, I made that game. It didn't feel the same. I had made a cute little game where all of the art and all of the programming was kind of just dragged and dropped into the project, and I just didn't feel like a real developer because of that. So I did some research, and I discovered that if you wanted to make real games on your own at the time, you needed to learn C++. I told my dad this, and he was awesome. He went right out and he bought me a copy of C++ for Dummies, and I opened it and I read the first page, and then I shut it and I never looked at it ever again. Honestly, honestly, I wasn't even willing to try, and I was a little bit lazy at that age, but I opened that book and I was like, nope. Why? Because it looked too hard. Don't get me wrong, programming is still difficult, but with languages like C#, which is the language that I use in the Unity game engine, it's just really extremely readable code. It's still tough to learn, but it's nothing like some of the older programming languages. Unreal still uses C++, but it doesn't really matter because you can use their visual scripting solution, Blueprint. On top of all this, the compilers have really improved as well. I've only ever used Visual Studio, but when I upgraded from version 2019 to version 2022, I was shocked at all of the improvements that I saw. It's also like 2 steps ahead of me at all times because it often suggests code that I haven't even written yet. Like, it can predict exactly what it is that I'm trying to do sometimes. And if I just want to autofill that in, I just hit the tab button. It's a really great feature, and it saves me a lot of time and typing. There is a mountain of free knowledge available out there. And, you know, obviously this is because of the internet. It is more than that, though, and a lot of it is because of all of the amazing, talented people out there. There are many successful YouTube channels, for example, that are 100% dedicated to game dev tutorials. And because of how the algorithm works on YouTube, these people are trying to make their content as concise and as valuable as possible. They have to, or their content's not going to get views. I'm actually going to link some of my absolutely favorite Unity tutorial channels down below in the description. These are all channels that I have watched and followed, and they are fantastic. We also have tutorials on this channel as well. You can check them out right here. Now, because of the way that YouTube works, long form videos that go really, really deep into things like optimization and best practices, they just don't seem to perform quite as well. Beginner friendly videos generally seem to do better because they have a broader possible audience. The higher the level of expertise that the tutorial requires you to have, the smaller the possible audience that video has. And that is unfortunate, but that is where things like blogs and courses and other materials come in, including publications from your game engine. I literally just found out that Unity has free ebooks that you can download, and they are packed with all sorts of tips and best practices and really just how to make the most of their engine. I literally had no idea about this until just a couple of days ago. They also have the Unity Learn website, which is packed with really nice bite-sized lessons. I'm sure that Unreal and Godot have similar things available as well. I just don't keep up with that because I don't use those engines. It is in a game engine's best interest to make game dev knowledge as accessible as possible. So again, more and more valuable free content is going to continue to get pushed out because it's going to result in better games being produced on their game engine, which in turn is going to attract more devs to their engine. Because of websites like Fiverr, finding freelancers these days is pretty easy. I can't speak for the quality of work you're going to get just from personal experience. I've never hired anyone on Fiverr, but I have seen a lot of developers utilize that tool when they need something quickly. There are all kinds of programmers on there, 2D artists, 3D artists, and composers that are looking for small jobs. The benefit with going with something like Fiverr over an asset store is that you're going to get unique assets for your game. Might be a song, might be some sound effects, might be some pixel art, whatever it is, it's going to be unique. And you can hire anyone from any country very easily. It's amazing. A few months ago, I ran into a problem while working on our commercial game, and I was stuck for weeks. I was creating the map system. First time I had ever worked on one before. I had made mini maps in the past, so I had a base knowledge to work off of, but I wanted my players to be able to place a pin on the map. Our game is a Metroidvania, and this is a really nice mechanic for Metroidvanias to have because you might find some sort of secret or ability just out of your reach that you can't get yet, so you can place a pin on your map so that you know to return to that area later on. And I got it sort of working, but there was this offset. I would place a pin down and it would actually place it lower and to the left of where I actually placed it. For weeks, I could not figure out why. So let me just say this. Ask for help when you need it. If you are out of your depth, which I was, ask for help. I went on the Unity forums. I went on Discord. I'm a part of all sorts of game development servers. And I just quickly copied and pasted the same message asking for help in all of them. Honestly, I really wasn't expecting to get the problem solved anytime soon. And yet, sure enough, some random person on the internet that I do not know messaged me and was like, hey, I was able to duplicate your issue. Here's why. It's because of this and this. If you were an indie or a solo developer, this is massive. Over the years, I have found myself wishing so many times, man, I wish I had a teacher. I wish I had a mentor of some kind, like a senior programmer that just sat here next to me that I could ask questions if I needed help. But I'm an indie developer, and up until earlier this year, I've always worked alone until my wife joined the team same as our artist and video editor. But my point is there's actual help out there. They might not be a coworker that sits right next to you that you can ask 50 questions a day, but there are people out there that can teach you how to do what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Because of the ease of entry into the game dev industry, because of free game engines and all of the information available, there is now a vast community of people online that do what you do, and some of them can and will help you if you need it. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. We all start as beginners and we all become experts with enough time and work, and there are people that can help you with every stage of the process. Honestly, sometimes my ego stops me from asking for help. There is some part of me that wants me to do this all completely on my own, but honestly, at least for me and my personal goals, trying to do all of this myself without asking for help is not the most efficient way for me to work. I have goals that I want to achieve, and trying to do all of this myself is literally just going to slow me down from fulfilling that goal. So ask for help when you need it. It doesn't mean that that piece of content in your game that you needed help creating, it doesn't mean that doesn't belong to you. It doesn't mean that you owe anyone anything, and it doesn't make you dumb. Honestly, it makes you smart. And that is why making video games is easier than ever. Let me know in the comments if anything should be added to this list.